So please stay tuned for further announcements from CGED regarding the schedule. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Song Geng. Dr. Song is Associate Professor in the School of Chinese at the University of Hong Kong. He has written extensively on issues such as men and masculinities in China, Chinese television, and Chinese nationalism. His publications include The Fragile Scholar, Power and Masculinity in Chinese Culture, Men and Masculinities in Contemporary China, Chinese Television in the 21st Century, and The Cosmopolitan Dream, Transnational Chinese Masculinities in a Global Age. He co-edits a book series on transnational Asian masculinities for Hong Kong University Press. The title of Dr. Song's talk tonight is Televising Chineseness, Gender, Nation, and Subjectivity, and it draws from his forthcoming book from the University of Michigan Press.
Okay, thank you, Angie, for the introduction. And thank you, Gina and Alvin, for inviting me to give the talk. I'm honored to have this opportunity to share with you my forthcoming book. As Angie just mentioned, let's see, it just doesn't move. As Angie just mentioned, this talk is about my, here it is, forthcoming book, which will come out by University of Michigan Press in early next year. So this book examines the latest development of China's television industry and how it has shaped gender politics, individual subjectivity, and national identity in the 21st century. In particular, I'm interested in the conspicuous paradox in the gendered images in Chinese television today. That is the increasing diversity of gender presentations, such as the proliferation of queer and non-mainstream images. Those hand in hand with a revival of a more conservative gender ideology, moralistic censorship, such as the censorship against adulterous contents or actors, against explicit LGBTQ depictions, and most recently against the surrogate pregnancy. So this paradox reflects both the changing political economy of the Chinese media and the tensions between neoliberal globalization and the locally embedded discourses such as nationalistic politics. Gender dynamics as an important site of power negotiation are thus both constructing and reflecting the paradoxical affective structure of confidence and anxiety associated with China's rise. So the book examines Chineseness as an affectively mediated notion. One feature of the book is its combination of textual analysis of select TV drama series with ethnographic research of TV audiences and producers. So I have conducted focus group discussions, for instance, with TV viewers of different backgrounds, and also drew data from online commentaries of the TV programs. So what I'll do today is that I will briefly introduce the structure of the book, that is the chapters in the book. And then I will focus on one section in chapter 4, that is the overbearing CEO motif. So chapter 1 lays the theoretical foundation of the book, provides the background information on gender and nation in the Chinese context, and also it talks about the significance of televisual storytelling as a pivotal device in reconfiguring gender imaginaries, popular sentiments, and knowledge production. So I'm borrowing Foucault's theory of governmentality to discuss the role of cultural governance by television in today's China, because China provides a complex and contested case study of how the relationship between the state and the individual operates in a non-liberal context. On the one hand, there is little doubt that the Chinese state has no intention of retreating from its people's lives, particularly in terms of cultural and intellectual control. On the other hand, concomitant with the privatization and the marketization of state-owned enterprises has been the party state's increasing interest in and appropriation of a host of strategies and discourses that in many regards correspond to the neoliberal trend in the West to manage, control, and educate the Chinese population. At the center of the discourses and the strategies mobilized by the government during this process is the creation of desiring subjects, to borrow Ruffles' term, in a consumerist context. So without emphasizing rights or liberties, Chinese governmentality involves both a facilitative dimension, that is the free individuals pursuing their own interests, and then authoritarian dimension, that is the production of controllable citizens who are both loyal to the party state and useful for the market. And television plays a central role in this process of subject making. So in chapter 2, I provides a survey of the development of the TV industry in China from the 1980s as a symbol of modernity to the 21st century as the multi-platform and profit-driven entertainment complex. As we enter the second decade of the 21st century, the boundary between television, film, and video is disappearing. And yet, serial narrative based on the format of TV drama and the borrowing film techniques has emerged as the most robust and popular form of storytelling in China. So here, by television, I mean a multi-platform consumerist culture of entertainment and knowledge production that grew out of the traditional TV channels. And during my field work, when I introduced the young viewers, they said that television is watched everywhere but on television today. They use their mobile phones, their laptop, their iPad to watch TV dramas, but never through the traditional TV set. So as far as the function of cultural governance is concerned, talent shows, singing contests, and idol shows, most of them copycatted from Western or Korean programs, have mushroomed in China. And echoing the Chinese dream ethos, these programs try to convince the audience that ordinary people like farmers, migrant workers, single mothers, or even those with disabilities can become celebrities overnight by dint of talent, hard work, persistence, and moral support from family and friends. So this project, the so-called positive energy or the Zheng Nengliang, through neoliberal style self-development. Although the government hand is never invisible, the images, motifs, and discourses emerging on the Chinese TV screen in recent years urge us to reflect on the production of desirable selfhood through the relatively autonomous consumption of television. For one thing, television is not only a medium of information and communication, but more importantly, a routine escape from reality. So the heterotopic space of TV accommodates audience fantasies about what is lacking in their lives, as well as projections of their various desires. For instance, nowadays on the Chinese TV screen, depictions of rural life and urban poverty have become almost disappeared from the small screen. Instead, Chinese television dramas have become, to borrow the words of Bai Ruoyun, a dreamland where fantasies reign. And the traditional TV stations at various levels in China are facing challenges imposed by the proliferation of digital platforms and consequently competition arising from TV production companies backed by such digital media giants like Tencent, Tengxun, Alibaba, and Baidu. So serial dramas known as IP dramas, so IP stands for intellectual property, and IP dramas which are based on online novels, games, and animations, and thus capitalize on the existing popularity and fan base of these works, have emerged as a predominantly popular genre in the time of media convergence. Some of them are exclusively produced for video streaming platforms. So the rapid growth of the digital entertainment industry has effected significant change to the demographics of the domestic TV audience, because traditionally it was believed that middle-aged or older people, especially middle-aged women, are the primary audience, target audience of Chinese domestic Chinese TV programs. But nowadays, for instance, during my interview, one TV industry practitioner told me that the target consumer or the typical consumer of TV drama nowadays has shifted from the dama or the auntie in the broadcast era to a xiaoshao, the little sister-in-law in the web era. And because young women, most likely in their late 20s or early 30s, who are employed and most likely childless, and they have the money to pay for subscription of video portals, and they have the time to watch dramas online. So young women of this type also constitute a strong fan base for the star-making campaigns triggered by the most popular of these dramas. For instance, the Chen Qingling, the Untamed, which is a very popular web drama based on a BL story, a BL fiction. And so after the airing of Chen Qingling, tickets to a concert given by the male stars in this drama, the Untamed, and in Nanjing or Hangzhou in the southern city, the tickets were bid up to more than 150,000 renminbi per ticket. So this attests to the remarkable purchasing power of this female fan base. So IP drama in particular give expression to the desires and fantasies of this group, the young women, this group of viewers. And also their desires are pivotal in molding the gender ideals these programs convey. So chapter 3, I focus on an infamous subgenre of Chinese TV, that is the anti-Japanese drama, or the 抗日神剧. Through critical analysis and audience study of several representative such dramas, the chapter illustrates how nationalist heroism bespeaks a phallocentric preoccupation, and how gender images are given different meanings by audiences of different backgrounds. So I use the term, the phrase, patriotic patriarchy to refer to the ideology in these dramas, because there are stereotyped images and discourses on the TV screen pivot on a hetero gender binary, and in one way or another legitimatize and enhance male dominance in society, which in turn symbolically buttresses the patriarchal power of the state. So Kanreji is using an old anime to support the new regime. So like you can see in this picture, this is a scene in a TV drama entitled Dago Gun, or the dog beating stuff. So the male protagonist is the chief of a Baecker sect in Chengde, in the northern Chinese city. And he becomes a national hero when the Japanese came to invade China. The stick he is holding is called the Dago Gun, or the dog beating staff. It is a weapon and also a symbol of status, a symbol of power as the chief of that sect. And so the staff as a signifier of the phallus symbolizes the masculine power bestowed by patriotic politics and associated with the chivalrous deeds that the drama extols. Chapter 4 irrogates the sexism with Chinese characteristics through the motifs of the overbearing CEO and the streetman cancer, or the 直男癌. So 直男癌 is a vogue term used by netizens. It carries an important implication of helplessness on the sufferer's part, and is jokingly used to refer to male anxiety and the toxic masculinity associated with it in the face of rapidly transforming gender dynamics. So this chapter discusses several male characters who suffer from the condition and who have been singled out as targets for feminist fury in recent years. So I'll come back to this overbearing CEO motif later. So I just very quickly move on to chapter 5. So chapter 5 focuses on depictions of foreigners and foreignness on the Chinese TV screen. The images of foreigners are now ubiquitous on the Chinese TV screen. In addition to Japanese actors hired to play Japanese officers and soldiers in anti-Japanese TV dramas, as I just mentioned. So those actors are jokingly referred to as professional devils, or the 鬼子专业户, professional devils by the Chinese media. Increasing numbers of Caucasian actors are starring in a range of TV dramas, and they cater to both nationalist and cosmopolitan fantasies. So this chapter explores the changing visions of national selfhood and otherness in contemporary China, and how they are expressed through the prism of gender and sexuality. The chapter looks at how the national other is being both demonized and idolized in stereotyped fashion, particularly through inscription of the female body. So I talked about white women as a fetish in these dramas, such as My Natasha, and this one. This is from my the last visa, 最后一张签证, the last visa. So it's about how this Chinese diplomat during the Republican era, how he saved Jewish life by issuing Chinese visas to them so that they can leave the country, leave the Nazi-occupied Austria. And this woman is a Jewish woman. She's pregnant, and this Chinese man saves her life and helps her to get out of the country. So chapter 6 is about male effeminacy. So from the combined perspective of masculinity, queerness, and nationalism, chapter 6 explores the proliferation of effeminate male images known as the little fresh meat, or 小鲜肉, in Chinese TV in recent years. I argue that the little fresh meat images reflect both a reversal of the male gaze upon women and a continuation of the colonial gaze on Asian men. In line with the creation of desiring subjects, the young celebrities who are labeled little fresh meat are primarily created and driven by consumerism. They embody shifting masculinity in a consumer society that responds to female desires. So by analyzing TV programs and web dramas that feature this type of embodied masculinity, as well as media criticism of the sissy aesthetic trend, the chapter illustrates how effeminate male images originated from and are interacting with the transnational consumption of male beauty, particularly in female-oriented BL culture, and how transgressive gender expressions are denounced, censored, and contained by both the state and the hegemonic gender discourse. So this image is from the Chen Qingling, as I just mentioned, the Untamed, okay? And this web drama was adapted from online fiction, online BL fiction, but this significantly reduced BL elements. But you can still see, there's a palpable sexual tension between the two male protagonists with their macro expressions and lingering eye contact. Chapter 7 provides critical reading of a wide range of female characters on the small screen and traces the transformation of ideal womanhood over a span of 3 decades. So I talked about the Gongdoju, the palace intrigue dramas, and the supreme heroine subgenre, the 大女主, whereby women are constructed as autonomous agents with an entrepreneurial self who can determine and change their fates in a rapidly changing society through constant self-improvement. The success of these women symbolizes the success of China. So one recurring theme of these women's dramas is how women need to adapt to keep pace with the changing society and to regain confidence. So the discursive emphasis on women's agency and self-transformation negotiates with a conspicuous revival of patriarchal ideology. The image that I show you is still from the drama, The First Half of My Life, 我的前半生. It's about how a woman in Shanghai, this female protagonist, her name is Luo Zijun, how she bid farewell to the first half of her life. That is a life characterized by dependence and conspicuous consumption. And then when her husband divorces her, when he has an affair and then divorces her, she has to start anew to embark on a new life as a career woman. So this is a contrast between, between the housewife and the career woman, the different images of this woman before and after divorce. And through perseverance and hard work, Luo Zijun successfully turns herself into a woman with the skills and the qualities necessary to succeed in the market economy, and thus a model practitioner of the Chinese dream discourse. Ironically, however, the success cannot be achieved without the help of another man, that is her new boyfriend, who is much richer and more powerful than her ex-husband. Okay, so this is a very interesting thing, a very interesting phenomenon that I discussed. That is, the drama, which is promoting female agency and female independence, turn out to be, supporting or to promoting the patriarchal ideology. So in what follows, I will focus on TV dramas and web dramas that are adapted from online fictions with the overbearing CEO motif, or the 霸道总裁. So I need to introduce the formula of the overbearing CEO stories. They follow a certain stereotyped formula. The male protagonist is often a wealthy young member of the business elite or a success in another social arena. He is generally good looking with a egoistic personality and a brusque and cold manner, albeit consistent in love. The female protagonist, in contrast, is often of a humble background. She is generally rather plain, with modest accomplishments. So sometimes she's rather timid or shy, conveying an image of purity and weakness for the male protagonist. And then as the story progresses, the hero suddenly falls madly in love with the heroine and expresses his admiration and affection forcefully and in a brusque manner, to the extent that he could be suspected of trying to force himself upon her. And then without exception, however, the stories have a happy ending. This Cinderella type fantasy of hypergamy is a long-standing motif in Chinese popular literature and can at least be traced back to the novels of Taiwanese writers Qiong Yao and Xi Juan, which achieved widespread popularity on the mainland in the 1980s and 1990s. So overbearing CEO stories are increasing in popularity with the rise of online literature, especially among young female readers. The settings of such stories vary from modern corporations to ancient times and fairyland, and the young male lead can be an entrepreneur, a lawyer, a military commander, a high-ranking official, or even a king or emperor. What remains unchanged, however, is his power to control his environment and issue commands. And of course, I'm not saying that this image and story pattern is unique to China. Instead, they show the influence of the circulation of global pop culture, featuring a revamped Cinderella fantasy, like the Japanese manga Boys Over Flowers, and its film and TV adaptations in South Korea, Taiwan, mainland China, are typical examples of this romantic pattern. And American bestsellers such as 50 Shades of Grey and the Twilight Saga, which have also been adapted into popular film and TV, feature female characters similar to the overbearing CEO. That is, they are cool, aloof, and sometimes rude to women. And demonstrates the global appeal of such a gendered image that is a charming victor in the new liberal economy. In China, these dramas and their gender images have sparked alarm among a certain portion of the population who are highly critical of the fundamental values they promote and labeled them as fast food reading. And the values of such stories have been condemned for showing a strong sense of worship of the strong and also despotism. Despite such criticisms, however, overbearing CEO narratives continue to flourish and have given birth to a popular new genre of TV consumption. So that is the 霸道总裁 dramas. So here I'm going to talk about this TV drama series, 珊珊来了, or the English title is Boss and Me, It is adapted from Gu Man's web novella, 姗姗来吃, literally, 姗姗 comes to eat, and directed by a Taiwanese director, Liu Junjie, and premiered in 2014. So this series portrays the romance between Xue Shanshan, so this woman, so Xue Shanshan, and she is played by Zhao Liying, and her boss, Feng Teng, played by Zhang Han or Hans Zhang. So Xue Shanshan is from a small town, and she graduated from a second class university in China, and regards herself as an average girl. So she is overjoyed when she is offered a highly competitive job as a financial assistant by the Feng Teng Group, which is a very big company, very illustrious company, of which Feng Teng is the CEO. So the company's name is Feng Teng, and his name is also Feng Teng. But soon she discovers that she was given the job because of her rare blood type. Okay, maybe AB negative, so very rare blood type. And it so happens that Feng Teng's sister, Feng Yue, shares this blood type. And the company thus gives priority to fellow carriers when recruiting new members, so that they can reserve donors for blood donors for his sister. So after donating blood to Feng Yue when she is giving birth, Shanshan is summoned to the boss office at the top of the building for lunch. Because the kind-hearted Feng Yue has prepared pork liver, which is a blood tonic in traditional Chinese medicine, for Shanshan as a token of thanks. And then Feng Teng, who is attracted by Shanshan's cute manner of eating, then asks her to have lunch with him every day, giving the excuse that he needs someone to remove vegetables he dislikes from his lunchbox. So the two soon embark on a relationship in which Feng Teng plays the role of the overbearing protector and benefactor. And fully aware of the huge social gap between them, Shanshan makes a concerted effort to improve herself. So through hard work, she not only passes the challenging CPA examination, but also becomes a successful business person herself. So you can see that the relationship is decidedly unequal from the outset. Okay, and Feng Teng is the representative of the tall, rich, and handsome, or the Gao Fu Shuai stereotype of masculinity. He is the only male heir of the Feng family. He inherited the giant company from his grandfather at a young age, because his parents both passed away in a traffic accident when he and his sister were still children. So everyone in the company calls Feng Teng Big Boss and treats him with fear and reverence, whereas he always exhibits a grim countenance and appears aloof. By contrast, Xue Shanshan is the daughter of a small-town tailor, and she shares a small rented apartment in Shanghai with her cousin, and constantly worries about the security of her job before she begins dating Feng. So because of this unequal power relations between them, Feng continues to play the role of boss throughout their relationship, especially in its initial stages, speaking to Shanshan in a commanding tone, and jokingly or half-jokingly threatening her with dismissal or wage deduction. And Shanshan never attempts to challenge his authority or complain about his domineering manner. Although the drama highlights her spirit of self-reliance, for instance, she tries to hide the relationship from company colleagues and rejects Feng Teng's favors and gifts. But such gestures failed to convince many of the audience members that I interviewed, with some describing them as cosmetic in nature. So there's one subplot that is Shanshan's grandfather falls seriously ill. And then the Xue family sent him to Shanghai, but he's turned away by hospital after hospital, owing to a lack of vacant beds. And then the helpless Shanshan can only turn to Fengteng for help. And he soon makes arrangements to send her grandfather to the best hospital to receive the best treatment. Okay, so I would like to discuss the scene in which Feng is first attracted to Shanshan. And for me, this is a very interesting scene, which invites fruitful reading from the perspective of spatial semiotics. So Fengteng's office is at the top of the building. And then through his huge plate glass window, he can see the roof area outside his office, but no one can see in. So one day, Shanshan takes her lunchbox to the rooftop area to eat alone. And from behind the blinds, Fengteng observes with interest every move of Shanshan. And Shanshan does not know that she is visible from the other side. And so she is shouting, you know, so like this scene, she is making faces, making cute faces to the window, which she thinks is a mirror, regarded as a mirror, and shouts to her reflection in the window. And so in this scene, she's shouting that Shanshan is the ball of sunshine, and that is always filled with positive energy. Okay, 充满正能量, filled with positive energy. So from a slightly elevated angle, the shots highlights the contrast of the two characters divided by the window. The formidable observer and the object. Okay, so the contrasting spatial positioning and the subsequent one-way gaze not only exemplifies this, the much discussed to be looked at-ness of the female body, but also symbolically reflects the class difference of the two. In other words, Feng's condescending gaze is enabled by his privileged viewing position. And the pork liver lunchbox that I just mentioned is also a plot device that warrants special attention, because it is initially Feng Yue who asked her brother to take the lunchbox for Shanshan to thank her for her donation of blood. Subsequently, however, Fengteng continues to offer the same lunch, that is the greasy pork liver, which Shanshan finds revolting and forces her to have lunch with him. And not daring to refuse, Shanshan implores Fengteng's secretary to stop offering her pork liver to eat, but only to be told that she should talk to the boss herself. She ultimately ends up eating this loathsome food every day for a whole month. Okay, so this mischievous behavior is meant to demonstrate Fengteng's interest in Shanshan, because as his sister Feng Yue declares, the only way her brother can express his love for the woman he desires is to bully her. Okay, so several online commentators, however, have speculated that the real reason for the daily pork liver lunch is that Feng enjoys seeing how Shanshan has to swallow her anger out of fear. So this behavior is reminiscent of the well-known scene in Cao Yu's masterpiece, Thunderstorm, in which the tyrannical patriarch, Zhou Puyuan, forces his wife to drink liquid medicine, despite her strong reluctance to do so. In both cases, forcing women to eat or drink is a way to demonstrate male authority and becomes a morbid source of male pleasure. Unlike in Thunderstorm, however, Feng's behavior in Boss and Me is approvingly depicted. as a sign of bossy love rather than male despotism. Okay, so like in many other contemporary TV dramas, the entrepreneurial masculinity paradoxically reflects obsession with both cosmopolitanism and an imagined ahistorical Chineseness that is conspicuously associated with pedigree, wealth, and power, and by extension, the patriarchy. The fabulous wealth of the Feng family was originally generated by a figure who never appears in the drama, that is Feng Teng's grandfather. He founded the Feng Teng Group and passed it on to his grandson when he died. From the lips of Feng Teng and his sister, we learned that this grandfather was the benevolent yet conservative patriarch who established all of the rules and traditions of the clan, ranging from the dishes served for Chinese New Year's dinner to rigid wedding rituals. And these family traditions, along with the images of loyal servants who have waited upon the family for more than 30 years, articulate a fantasy of a continuous Chinese elite culture, as if the revolutions of the 20th century had never taken place. Contrary to the stereotype of the boorish 暴发户, the wealthy elite in Boston and Me are depicted as, in a rather ahistorical manner, as an aristocracy with a rich cultural pedigree and refined bourgeois taste. So for instance, this scene is in episode 12. It's a flashback of Feng Teng's childhood with his parents. And Feng Teng, as a boy of 6 or 7, is playing chess with his parents while seated on a sofa. So he is wearing a bow tie, and his father wears a gold wristwatch, and there's a pearl necklace around his mother's neck. Chess, also known as international chess in China, is associated with high-class taste and bourgeois culture in popular media. So the scene also shows the young Feng Teng reading an English novel before his father calls him to join this game. And at the same time, I think this ahistoricism also reflects the drama's discernible copycatting of similar Korean TV dramas, and thus, in effect, indicates a lack of Chineseness in its characterization and setting, because many viewers said that Feng Teng and his sister resemble people in South Korea or Taiwan rather than those in mainland China in their appearance and manner. And the story can be, easily transplanted to the setting of any society in the world. So compared with other women who quote Feng, Shanshan's attraction lies in her simplicity and naivety, which have extolled as desirable feminine traits. And many online commentaries use the word daimeng or dockable to describe her image. Originating in Japanese ACG culture, a dockable is normally used to refer to girls who are cute and pure and react slowly while appearing a bit silly. So in this drama, Shanshan is regularly shown eating snacks. So she's a foodie. She presents an innocent look whenever wronged in the workplace. She likes talking to herself and smiles in a doll-like manner, reflecting the Japanese kawaii culture, like this picture, in many ways. Feminist studies have unraveled the sexist overtone of childishness in the portrayal of women. And according to recent research on the infantilized image of femininity of youth culture in China, female cuteness not only implies the dependence and the vulnerability of women, but also conveys a cosmopolitan quality that lies at the center of post-socialist modernity. So for the reason of time, I'll just very quickly skip this part that is online comments and interviews results shows that this positive energy has been praised by audiences. And also, tellingly, when Shanshan finally becomes a successful entrepreneur through her hard work and wisdom, she decides to close her business and return to her role as Mrs. Feng. She says that she is actually not ambitious at all, nor interested in earning money, and her role, her sole purpose, the only purpose in embarking on the business career was to prove her value so that she could stand on an equal footing with Feng. Okay, so in other words, female power obtained through career success serves only as capital to win and retain an ideal husband. So I would like to talk about, lastly, the reception of this drama, because when discussing this drama with my informants, most young female audience members are identified with Shanshan, and most audience praised the positive energy of the drama. And they also mentioned that Shanshan, with her self-esteem and self-confidence, is a representative of new women in the new era, a subject position known for positioning womanly virtue as, I quote, the secret engine of China's march to the neoliberal world order, end of quote. So this is by Li Haiyan in Li Haiyan's book. One male informant, for instance, pointed out that Shanshan differs significantly from the Sha Bai Tian, the CC white and sweet girl, and that we commonly seen on the small screen. However, this does not mean that audience just passively accepts the ideology of the drama. On the contrary, the icy cold and conceited boss has been teased and mocked by quite a number of online commentators. During the focus group discussion, many young informants reveled in talking about a nickname given to Zhang Han, that is the actor playing Feng Teng in the drama, the fish pond master, the fish pond, or Yu Tang Tangzhu, fish pond master. So this nickname derives from a line in episode 12 of the drama. To celebrate the Chinese New Year, Feng Teng and his sister go fishing with a group of friends on a farm owned by the Feng family. And Shanshan also joins them, but she does not know how to fish. So Feng Teng stands close to her to instruct her. Then, to everyone's surprise, he suddenly embraces her from the back. So it's just as you can see in this picture, he embraces her from the back and declares in no uncertain terms, "I want everyone to know that this fish pond has been contracted to you." There are layers of meaning in this line. First, it shows Feng's brashness, that his brashness is derived from his wealth because this pond is owned by his family. Second, on a metaphorical level, it connotes Feng's promise to love Shanshan devotedly. Because Shanshan humbles herself on seeing Feng with his arresting appearance and wealth, and he's surrounded by so many remarkable women in his life. And then because of that, Shanshan hesitates to develop a relationship with him. And now through this metaphor, Feng not only makes public their relationship, but also confirms his devotion to their love in an assertive way. However, the line, which is meant to move the audience with its emotional effect, has been spoofed by netizens, with the meaning changed to a man simultaneously dating as many women as fish in the pond. The widely circulated meme has earned Zhang the unwanted nickname Fish Pond Master, which carries the connotation of a Casanova So fan works relating to this imaginary, some replete with risque sexual innuendo, flourished in cyberspace. In addition, both fish pond and contracted are words that are reminiscent of the peasants in a rural area who became explosively rich by contracting fish ponds from the state during the early period of economic reform. So these words therefore carry rustic connotations in the collective memory of China. The originally cosmopolitan and highly westernized image of Fengteng thus has been ruined by these associations. For instance, there are online photoshopped pictures featuring Zhang in an intimate pose with middle-aged rural women. And Zhang was extremely annoyed by these memes. So this shows that the entertainment, as entertainment, TV dramas are consumed and manipulated by audience in various ways. The patriarchal ideology promoted by the drama may not be taken seriously by the audience, and the ideal masculinity constructed by them may be mocked and parodied instead of being admired and worshipped in order to vent popular sentiment towards power and elitism. So in light of the theory of active audience, this attests to the multiplicity of ways in which a televisual text is given meaning by viewers. Okay, so thank you very much. Lastly, I would like to shamelessly promote my book. So this is the cover design of the book, and it is available for pre-ordering at the website of University of Michigan Press, and they offer a discount of 30% discount if you put the order online. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Song. I'm now going to introduce Dr. Alvin K Wong, who's kindly agreed to serve as respondent for Dr. Song's talk. Alvin K Wong is assistant professor in comparative literature at the University of Hong Kong. His research and teaching interests include Hong Kong culture, Chinese cultural studies, Sinophone studies, transnational feminism, and queer theory. Alvin is writing a book titled Queer Hong Kong as Method. He has published in journals such as Journal of Lesbian Studies, Gender, Place and Culture, Culture Theory and Critique, Concentric, Cultural Dynamics, Continuum, and Interventions, and in edited volumes such as Transgender China, Queer Sinophone Cultures, and Frederick Jameson and Film Theory. He also co-edited the volume Keywords in Queer Sinophone Studies. I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Wong.
Thanks, Angie, for the kind introduction, and thanks, Dr. Songgen, for this really amazing talk. And of course, I really look forward to reading your book as well. Your talk on televising Chineseness and also the figure of the overbearing CEO in contemporary Chinese TV drama makes several important interventions at the intersection of media and visual studies, gender studies, masculinity studies, and China studies. First, you historicize and contextualize the visual representation of the masculinist CEO subject within the post-socialist transformation of contemporary China. While the reform and opening era during the 1980s and the early 1990s under Deng Xiaoping's era has emphasized China's reopening to global capitalism, it also involves a certain cultivations of consumerist individualism and cosmopolitanism via what Lisa Rolfo calls the project of defining China. What your work adds to this scholarship on gender and post-socialist modernity is a sharper analysis of how individual cosmopolitanism and post-socialist aspiration get projected onto particular figures of masculinity and femininity in mass media. And specifically, you demonstrate how the figure of the domineering CEO, who is a wealthy young member of the business elite or from another professional class, often comes in pair with the contrasting female love interest, who is by contrast cute but not very socially refined. She is often from a humble class background, and hence her hypergamy and social mobility through falling in love with the masculinist CEO drives the main plots of these popular TV dramas and films. You show how the 2014 TV series My Boss and Me, 上山来了, stands out as an exemplary embodiment of this domineering CEO typology in the figure of the male protagonist Feng Ten, played by the tall and handsome actor Zhang Han. So beyond simply giving a name for this gender imaginary of capitalist, cosmopolitan, and masculinist fusion masculinity, you also demonstrate how this masculinity both enables a certain female agency in Shan Shan, the female protagonist played by Zhao Yin, but ultimately leads to a story of female domestication. You add to the reading of gender ideology a Foucauldian analysis of governmentality and the technologies of the self in contemporary China by referencing, for example, Xi Jinping's discourse of the Chinese dream, the mixed mode of governance that displays state authoritarianism and the cultivation of consumerist individualism and autonomy, etc. In your words, quotes, television plays a central role in producing citizens who are both loyal to the party and also useful for the markets, end of quote. You link this discourse of the Chinese dream, state governmentality, and individual cosmopolitanism to the larger convergence of media across multi-platform mass culture in contemporary China, such as TV drama, film, television shows, etc. Your brief and highly relevant analysis of shows such as Super Diva China, The Untamed, and The First Half of My Life are highly insightful. So I was reading the draft you shared with me, but obviously I look forward to the individual chapter discussing those shows. Finally, through interview-based ethnography and reception studies, you demonstrate the extent to which young female audience respond to the TV drama My Boss and Me with both romantic obsession of the male protagonist, affirmation of the female agency and individualism of Shan Shan, as well as parodic critiques and resistance to male chauvinism of the Feng Ten CEO character. The fantasy for the male character mainly has to do with the fascination about the tall, wealthy, and handsome the Dao Fu Shuai embodiment of the CEO from one informant who said that who could easily provide the best for me in life. However, other netizens created Gao and these playful parody and online meme of Zhang Han, who plays the Feng Ten character as the fish pond master. And this process also shows how the democratizing space of social media and the deterritorializing potential of it can lead to more critical analysis and resistance to the masculinist ideology embodied by the CEO character. As you rightly observe, the quotes, the patriarchal ideology and promoted by the dramas may not be taken seriously by the audience. And the ideal masculinity constructed by them may be mocked and parodied instead of being admired and worshipped in order to vent popular sentiment towards power and elitism. I have three questions, and some of them are interrelated. The first question is, you mentioned that the figure of the domineering CEO is in fact influenced by Korean wave and Japanese idol drama and other regional television representation of global masculinities. You draw on Sun Jun's argument about the non-nationality and border-crossing aspects of Korean masculinity and the Korean wave. Would you say that Chinese media representation of masculinities have also engaged in a two-way cultural traffic on a regional scale? And in other words, how do the domineering and other formulations of Chinese global masculinities travel to and impact other regional culture? So that's the first question. The second question, you mentioned Chen Qinglin, the Untamed, and you have also recently published a journal article on the politics of sissiness and sissiphobia in contemporary China, especially the state media witch hunts on male effeminacy on Liang Pao among male celebrities. Could you say more how the figure and popularity of the domineering CEO is in fact related to this fear and paranoia about male effeminacy? In other words, the popularity of androgynous male pop stars might also pose a threat to this domineering masculinity, I think. And I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about this. Or how do multiple expressions of masculinities lead to potential queer fandom and appropriations? And last questions, how do you see the future of boys love BL and soft masculinity in contemporary Chinese mass media and culture? Given the witch hunt against male effeminacy, do you see online streaming platform and its popularity of dangaiju and danmei TV dramas such as The Untamed and also Words of Honor, Shang Helin recently? Do you see them being affected or even perhaps censored? Similar TV dramas might be censored in the future. And relating to this, do you see a decline of interest and relevance of the CEO figure and the gender typology, given the increasing fascination with BL and dangaiju? And maybe are there also a lot of overlaps in terms of consumers and viewers of these two types of drama? So I'll just stop there and let Dr. Song-Gun respond. Again, could you unmute your, unmute.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me? Yes, okay, yeah, thank you for the questions and comments. So the first question, I think it has something to do with the soft power of the nation. And I think the Chinese state is very concerned about enhancing the soft power of China. But when you talk about this two-way influence, I can't think of any examples of the Chinese male image becoming influential or has an impact on the perception of masculinity in other countries. The only exception I can think of is Yanxi Gonglue, the story of Yanxi Palace, but that's most for the female images, femininity, a version of Chinese femininity, and and I think the female characters, the female images in that drama also can be categorized as the 大女主, the supreme heroines. So and the male image, the emperor Qianlong, still follow this overbearing CEO pattern. So he could be regarded as another example of the overbearing CEO. And that drama is very popular in, as far as I know, very popular in Southeast Asian countries. It is popular in Hong Kong, and also it has been translated in many languages. So if we talk about soft power, maybe that one can be regarded as a successful example of how Chinese popular culture is inserting influence on other cultures. For the second and third question, so I didn't hear it quite clearly. So you mentioned, you mean that the overbearing CEO image is also can be regarded as a variant of the 小鲜肉 or the little fresh meat. Is that what you mean?
I guess what I meant to say is, do you see the popularity of the around male effeminacy, sometimes about like from musicians and pop stars, and I guess the male effeminacy aspect sometimes also overlap with the little fresh meats figure. Do you see these figuration of masculinity as competitive to the overbearing CEO? Because the overbearing CEO doesn't really come across as, doesn't usually display male effeminacy, or it can even be seen to be contrary to.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah, I'll just.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yes, and I think 小鲜肉 and the 娘炮, these are two separate concepts. So 小鲜肉 is not necessarily effeminate. So you can argue that Zhang Han is a 小鲜肉 image, but probably he's not effeminate. He's not sissy, not 娘炮. So I think these are two different concepts. And this is related to your third question about the future of male effeminacy, the representation of male effeminacy on in Chinese media. And I think it's hard to tell. I think it's hard to predict what will happen in the future. But I think again, I think for the government, their concern is not about male effeminacy. It's about this threat to national security or to the virility of the nation. Okay, so like the official media outlets, they published many articles to argue if our boys are as weak and effeminate as that, and then in the future, who can defend the nation if there's a war between China and Japan and the USA, and who will become the defender of the nation? Okay, so I think they are mainly out of a nationalistic concern, and there's a clear link between masculinity and nationalism. Yeah, so I think but at the same time, of course, I think maybe unconsciously they will think that these queer images constitute a threat to the gender order. Because they look like neither man or women, right? So this is for them, it cannot be accepted. This are not acceptable, and because they constitute a threat to the social order. Yeah. So maybe we can see if there are any other questions.
Amanda, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your fascinating talk. I really look forward to the book.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether you cover this in your research, but I wonder whether you can share with us your opinion on whether the idol culture and talent shows, so 选秀综艺, that sort of which often produces popular male celebrities who then take on male lead roles in TV dramas. I wonder whether these phenomenon has had an impact on aesthetics and how masculinity is televised. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for this.
Okay, yeah. In this book, I focused on TV dramas, on storytelling and narratives. So I briefly mentioned in passing the idol shows singing context in my second chapter, that is a brief introduction of the TV industry in China. So the shows that you mentioned are not the subjects of my research in this book, but I think this is a very interesting question. And for instance, one of my PhD students, he's doing research on the hip hop culture, the 嘻哈音乐 in China. And there's a TV program called 中国有嘻哈. And from the perspective of masculinity studies, there are many interesting new images and new discourses arising from this hip hop culture. Yeah, I think this is potentially a very fruitful way of studying emerging masculinities or contesting masculinities in popular culture in China, and maybe this could be a future direction of my research. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat room. Can you elaborate more on the continuation of colonial gaze at Asian through little fresh meat that you mentioned earlier? Yes, so in that chapter, in the chapter on little fresh meat, I argue that I'm trying to answer one question, that is why this type of effeminate male image, why are they very popular in East Asian countries, in South Korea, Japan, China, while in Western countries, in Europe and America, generally speaking, they are not popular and they're not that widely accepted. So one hypothesis that I put forward is that these images, I didn't spend much time on elaborating on it, but I put forward this argument that is this is a continuation of the colonial gaze, because it is acceptable for Asian men to look effeminate or weak, right? And also, of course, some scholars have attributed this to the Confucian tradition, or the Wenwu dichotomy. But in fact, Wen masculinity is not effeminacy, right? Wen is talent, literary talent, knowledge. So I think it would be problematic to say that Wen masculinity equals effeminacy, or the so-called sissiness, right? So I think my argument is that an Asian, unconsciously or consciously or unconsciously, there's the internalization that Asian men are, imitator of white men, and they can never reach that level of standard of masculinity. And so Asian effeminacy can be accepted or can be fashionable, right? Because of this colonial gaze. So this is just one hypothesis. I know that I will need more elaboration, more theoretical or more evidence to support this argument. But what I'm trying to do is argue that this is firstly, this is reversal of the male gaze, right? So this is female gaze upon man, or the male body as a commodity, as an object of desire. And secondly, this is this discourse of male effeminacy is the continuation of the colonial gaze upon Asian men. Yeah. Okay.
We have a question in the chat from Julia. She asks, I'd like to ask your thoughts on the reality show Sisters Who Make Waves, or 乘风破浪的姐姐, and its sociocultural significance and implications.
I know little about this reality show, so I'm afraid I cannot comment on it and its social cultural significance. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Maybe I will have a look at it afterwards, but I'm not quite familiar with this.
Okay, we have a question from CH, if you'd like to go ahead and ask.
Hi, Calvi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Calvin. Yeah. Yes, I just want to ask a question about the relationship between these TV shows and the rise of the new middle class and consuming class in post-socialist and neoliberal China. I mean, how would you see the relationship between this TV popular culture or media text on the one hand, and the rise of the new social stratum in China? Do you see that as a reflection of an existing class, or do you see that that is going into being a new social subject, or what? I mean, I'm just interested in your views about that. And thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Yes, I think this is a fantastic question. Actually, I have also mentioned this briefly in my introduction. When I talk about governmentality, I think the strategy is to govern a portion of the population through their autonomous consumption. And this portion of the population are mainly middle classes, right? And so back to your question, I think these TV programs both reflect and construct the identity of the emerging middle classes. So and I think cosmopolitanism is one key word in this construction. Okay, so for instance, nowadays many TV programs, many TV dramas, they will shoot the drama in a foreign country, in Europe or America or Southeast Asia, and to show that these characters, the protagonists and other characters, they have the money to travel to have a holiday overseas. Okay, and also there's a depiction of their consumption, their identity constructed through consumption. So yes, this is and also back to the 小嫂子, the young female audiences as the target audience of these TV dramas that I discussed. I think they are also from the middle class. So definitely this construction of a class identity and construction of a lifestyle that is that belong to the middle class is very important. Is one of the key words to understand Chinese television today. So yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very good question. Yeah.
Let's take a question from Li Zhishan Grace. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I am actually, my discipline is also feminism. So what really concerns me in this issue about televising Chineseness and gender norms is that I think because we see all those, ambivalence of female characters, we see those strong women characters such as Luo Zijun, although she eventually falls into being patronized. But then we also see those Daimong, adorable women, and all those ambivalence. But I think there is a trend that in a consumerist culture, women are like the TV makers are trying to please women in general. This is kind of commodity feminism, like trying to sell things to women. But then actually, if we look at gender equality rates and women's rights in China, it is dropping really rapidly in recent years. I think from 2015, around the second child policy to now is dropping like 50, it was around 50-ish in the world. It's now beyond 100 or something in the world. So I wonder, similar to the question about this rising middle class, this construction of a class and their consuming power, I want to know, do you have anything to say about the actual social political issue within gender, but then meanwhile the televising gender, like their correlation? So thank you.
Yeah, very good question. I think this is related to the paradox that I mentioned at the beginning of my talk. That is, on the one hand, there is a growing diversity of gender presentations. There's an awareness of feminist thoughts and rise of feminist thinking. But on the other hand, as you can see through censorship and directives of the government, there's a very conservative notion of gender or policing of gender, and that is to get rid of unconventional gender images, like the queer images, like the feminine, male effeminacy, or the radical feminist images and discourses. So I think this is a paradox, and this paradox is rooted in the paradoxes of post-socialism in contemporary China, right? Because ultimately, fundamentally, this is a conflict between the market and the state ideology, right? So from the perspective of the state, or from the perspective of the government, it wants to control, right? Control people's intellectually and politically, control people's thinking. So this is a censorship, and there's many red lines, many taboos in producing television in China. And it's very heavy-handed censorship of TV production in China. So this is one side of this phenomenon. But on the other side, this is a fast-growing industry. This is a highly productive and highly, this is a growing very fastly developing industry, and many big companies, many production companies are in this industry. So their concern is market, right? So how to answer, to answer my question that I put forward at the beginning of the lecture, and also to answer your question, I think this shows the paradoxical relationship. There's a complicity, right? Complicity between the market and the state, but also there's tension, right? The tension and conflict between the market and the state. So this explains why there's what we are seeing is a paradoxes and contradictions in terms of gender, right? So I think I definitely agree with you, and I think this is a very thought-provoking issue. Okay, so we have another question here.
One more question from Xini Yan in the chat box. Xini would like to know how you selected the TV shows that you discuss in your book, as they found them to be very representative of the themes and genres.
How you select the TV shows? Okay. So you are asking about methodology. Yes. So I select the TV shows through two ways. So one is I have some. I think because my focus is gender and nation. So my primary interest is gender politics in TV programs. So firstly, I will have a look at the online articles, comments in social media, or newspaper articles, and to find out, and also to through conversation with TV fans, to find out what are the TV programs, TV dramas that are particularly triggering debates or discussions related to gender issues in recent years. So I have a time frame that is since 2015. So from 2015 to 2020, this is about the time frame. So and ratings is also a concern, right? So I will select TV dramas with high ratings because that means they are influential, highly influential. So high ratings, and also comments in social media and online media. Okay, this to show that they have generated debate on gender issues. And also, as I said, I organized the focus group discussions with TV viewers. And this is similar to the snowball sampling or snowball technique. That is, during the discussion, the informants will normally mention some TV programs that I have never seen. But through the discussion, they would say something about them. They'll say this is interesting and this is related to this topic, and then they recommend the dramas to me. Okay, so through this technique, I also find some very interesting TV programs. So altogether, there are about, I think, around 20 to 25 maybe TV dramas that I have paid close reading in my book. Yeah.
Okay, I see we have a hand up, and then we have one more question in the chat box. I'm gonna ask, for the purposes of time, if anyone else has another question, to please raise your hand or type it now so that we have enough moments to address them all. But for now, let's first hear from, I think it was Calvin who has his hand raised, and then we will answer Chen Suyu's question in the chat box next.
Yes, I would like to ask about what kind of pleasures that the viewers get by watching these TV melodramas. It is hard for me to identify with these female viewers. I mean, for example, 珊珊来了, this particular TV, I mean, the representations of women are so conservative and so limiting, you know, like the woman is simply, you know, she acts cute and eats in a very adorable way, or, you know, this is this kind of representation of woman who is very limiting. It is, you know, so I just wonder, you know, what kind of pleasures do the female viewers have when they watch TV programs like that, you know? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe that kind of viewing pleasures, you know? What do they get from it?
Yeah, I think it differs for different groups of viewers, because we cannot just disregard the viewers as a monolithic group. You know, there's a diversity among them, and for instance, they have different background, different age, education level, or income. So it's very you know, hard to say, but I would like to say that through the discourse, focus group discussions, I think most young women, the reason why they like the overbearing CEO is because this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy. Okay, they may not necessarily identify with the female protagonist, but definitely they would dream. And this is also related to the so-called leftover, the 剩女, leftover women, right? The 剩女 phenomenon, because they would dream to be, you know, forcefully loved by such a young, handsome, and rich man. Okay, I think this is definitely a fantasy for most of the female viewers, because this type of overbearing CEO, this subgenre, the primary target reader audience are young women or middle-aged women. Okay, so there are more female fans than male fans. But I think if you want to find out what pleasure they take, I think it's a very complicated issue, because for different viewers, we cannot just say they all identify with Chineseness. Of course, as I said, there are also parody and mocking of you know, of the discourse of the images. So I think for different different group of viewers, they may have different reasons why they like it. Right? For instance, I used to conduct audience study with viewers of an anti-Japanese TV drama, 红色, red, right? And then some young women told me that the reason why they like the drama is different from the reason why their parents like the drama, because their parents would take pleasure in killing the Japanese devils when the Japanese are defeated. They take pleasure in it. But for the young women, they think the male protagonist, played by Zhang Luyi, is very handsome. And he is a 暖男, a warm man, right? So he secretly helping his girlfriend without letting her know. Okay, and so they are dreaming, they're imagining that they could have a boyfriend like that, who is a warm man. So this shows that for different people, different audience of different background, they may have different reasons of taking pleasure in viewing these programs. Okay, so we have not. You said this last question by Chen Ziyue, and she said, "I'd like to ask a question about the definition of the drama type of 大女主." I think one translation of this is the supreme heroine drama, because you mentioned the first half of my life, 我的前半生, and talked about the transformation of the heroine from a housewife to a working woman, which is a very inspirational drama. I don't know if a drama that focuses on the career of a female protagonist or a heroine with a stronger character can be called a big heroine or 大女主 drama. Thanks. I do not have a clear definition of supreme heroine, but I think firstly, this is the drama that the female protagonist is the most important character, right? So I mean, the focus is on this woman, and also as I said, this is inspirational because it shows the female protagonist and how she overcomes difficulties, overcomes barriers to achieve her goal, right? Like there is a drama and also film called 杜拉拉升职记, the promotion of 杜拉拉. I think that is a typical example, of how. So this is what I call the neoliberal. Why this is called neoliberal subject making is because it's promoting an ideology that you could rely on your strengths. You could, as a woman, right? You could change your fate. You could change your destiny through hard work, through your and wisdom, right? So I think a 大女主 not necessarily as a drama about modern day women. It could also, I think, for 延禧攻略, the story of Yanxi Palace could also be counted as a 大女主, and because this protagonist, Wei Yingluo, right? She's very strong, and she's defeated all the rebels, all the enemies in the palace, and then she becomes the most powerful woman in the palace, in the inner court. So this story is about the successful development, career development of women, and how women, win over their fate. Okay, so in line with a new liberal ideology. I think that is my definition of the supreme heroine. Why it is called 大女主, I think it's compared with the dramas in the past, right? For instance, some scholars argue that this 延禧攻略 is a reflection of the rise of women or the rise of feminist thinking, because in the past, all the imperial dramas are focusing on emperors, on the 皇帝, on emperors. But this one and some other dramas like the 芈月传 or some 如懿传, they are focusing on women. They're focusing on concubines and empresses, right? So this is a change of focus and also change of the ideological implication, right? So I think maybe this is one way to define the supreme heroine dramas.
Angie's connection is not very stable, so she asked me to maybe read the last comment from Dr. Grace Ting of Gender Studies. From the perspective of a Japanese girls culture scholar, just a comment, no need to respond. I noticed how comics, TV drama, etc. are extremely heteronormative in many respects, but will sometimes have a few remarkably progressive or feminist aspects woven in. So I find Korean dramas quite conservative still, but Japanese feminists find them to be very feminist in certain ways. So I'm also quite surprised sometimes by how a show can seem so normative yet progressive at the same time. So they are generally very familiar, comforting, but also incorporates clearly feminist statements. So I think it actually echoes a lot of the gender contradictions that Dr. Song-Gun mentioned earlier.
Yes, yes, thank you very much.
So I think we have a very long and engaging and really insightful conversation today. And thank Dr. Song-Gun so much for giving this wonderful book talk. And we all look forward to reading a book very soon. And
okay, thank you very much, Alvin, and thank you everyone for coming.
And see you all next time for the next CGED events.